Hey everyone, it's me, Jack. Today I'm going to be talking to you about shooting large format film and my personal experiences with the Intrepid 4x5 Mark III. So as we all know, the larger the negative, the more detail you can pull from the image. Large format typically comes in three standard sizes: 4x5, 5x7 and 8x10. Although this is the smallest size of large format, you still get way more image details than you do out of a traditional 35mm roll film. Typically the main uses of large format involve portraiture, landscape and fine art photography. I tried making this video back in June of last year, but unfortunately I hit a few setbacks. A benefit in the delay of the video means that I've had more hands-on time with the camera itself and better understand the processes of using it. I guess a good place to start would be to talk about the camera itself. This is the Intrepid 4x5 Mark III. The camera itself is made primarily of plywood and 3D printed parts, although there are some metal parts to the camera itself. When ordering your own camera, you can choose a selection of many different colours. I've chosen red, although my first choice would have been the green. I decided against this though, because mainly I like to shoot in woodland and forest environments and I don't want to lose the camera. You have all the basic controls of a large format camera on the Intrepid. On the front standard you have tilt, shift, rise and fall, and on the back you just have a tilt. The camera itself takes standard 4x5 sheet film holders, as well as Polaroid backs and Graph-Lock style film magazines. And that's all the features of the camera itself. It does come with the ground glass, but it doesn't come with a lens, a mounting board, or the film sheet holders themselves. So now let's talk about the accessories. In my large format kit, I have 4 sheet film holders. I bought these on eBay used for about £30. The film itself you obviously need, because otherwise you can't take photos. I've chose Fomapan in this case, but I've also got some Kodak T-Max 100 upstairs, which I have used, which is very good. Fomapan gives you the best bang for buck. How many sheets do you get in here? I think it's about 50 sheets for £40, something like that I think I paid. Maybe a little bit more, £50 perhaps. I've shot both 400 and 100, although the 100 seems to have little sort of artifacts in the film itself, so the 400 gives you a much cleaner negative than the 100, surprisingly. Because the film costs so much, I went out and bought a dedicated light meter. You don't have to do this, you can continue either using a light meter on your phone or a light meter in a digital camera, but I chose to pick up a spot meter just for little details far away that I want to make sure that I am exposing correctly. This is a Pentax spot meter number 5, and I think I bought this from Japan for about £200. And the final most important thing that I would say is a loupe. I put off buying a loupe for ages and ages because I thought, oh, it's fine, I can just use my eyes, I can see what's in focus. But when you get your scans back and you realise that you've missed focus by a small amount, say for example in a portrait that I did of my friend Justin, his collar is more in focus than his eyes are because I didn't have a loupe with me. This is a lifesaver, trust me. The final 3 accessories that I think that you really need are going to be a tripod, a dark cloak of some sort. I typically use a changing bag, and a cable release. I currently own 2 lenses for the system. I own a Schneider Simar 135 at 5.6, and on the camera at the moment is a Nikkor 210 also at 5.6. If you were looking for a 50mm equivalent for 4x5 large format, you'd be looking at a 150mm lens. Typically, I found myself straying more towards 35mm equivalents nowadays. My 135 sits at roughly about 40mm though, and my 210 sits at about 70mm. So I've got both semi-wide angle and semi-telephoto covered with the 2 lenses. So now that you have everything that you need to start taking photos, I'll take you through the process of loading film. The film itself comes in these boxes, and you have to take the film out of the bag within the box in complete darkness and transpose it into one of these. I use a changing bag for this. When inserting the film into the film holder though, you need to make sure that the cutout or the textured area sits in the bottom left of the film holder. Failure to do this will result in horrible looking negatives. That was one of the reasons why this video took so long to take, because I wasn't paying enough attention when loading the film and all my negatives came out dark. The way that I like to remember which way around to load the film is loading left is lovely, so I like alliteration. So now that you have your film holders loaded up with film, we need to set up the camera. To do this, you need to attach your camera to a tripod. Next, we need to unpack the camera. Loosen off the rear screws and bring the back standard up to 90 degrees. Next, you can pull forward on the front standard to extend the bellows. Depending on the focal length of the lens depends on which hole you screw the front standard into. For wider angle lenses, you use the rear hole. For normal lenses, use the middle hole. And for more telephoto lenses, you use the hole furthest away from the rear standard. You want to make sure that the rise and fall and the tilt knobs are fully tightened before attaching a lens. To do this, you slide up on the front lock, insert the lens in the lens board, and close the latch again. So now that we have the camera set up, we are ready to prepare to take a photo. Yes, that's right, you need to prepare to take a photo. To frame up your subject, you need to do a few things. Firstly, you need to open the lens up. In my case, there's a little switch that I can adjust to open the lens up. Make sure that your lens is at its maximum aperture. This way, the most light can come through the lens and hit the ground glass, allowing you to see a much clearer image. What I like to do next is get a basic focus. So I use the front knobs to focus the lens board back and forth. Once I'm happy with a basic focus, I can continue to set up the composition. Once I have adjusted my composition to my liking, either using the movements on the front standard or different positions on the tripod, I use my loop under my dark cloth or changing bag to get a finer focus. Once you are happy with the composition, you need to close the lens by pressing that switch on the front of the shutter again. Next, you need to take a meter reading using your light meter, digital camera, or phone. Input your settings into the shutter on the front of the camera. Screw in a cable release. Insert a film holder. Now before removing the dark slide, I like to test to make sure that the shutter is firing correctly. I cock the shutter and depress the shutter release cable. Once I'm happy, I can cock the shutter again, remove the dark slide, press on the shutter cable release, reinsert the dark slide, and then take the camera to bits again, if I just want the one shot. If I want multiple shots, then, or say for example, if I want to bracket, then I will remove the film holder, spin it round, put it back in, readjust my settings, and do exactly the same again. Once you've exposed all the sheets of film that you wanted to, you need to bring them back home and get them developed. With 4x5, there's a few different ways of developing it. You can either do tray development, which needs to be done in complete darkness, or you can buy specialised either accessories or developing tanks. I chose to buy a Stearman's press. This allows me to do 4 sheets of film at a time. Like I said earlier, I did originally start filming this video back in June, and since then I've actually made a few modifications to the camera itself. I won't say that these were to fix faults with the camera necessarily, bearing in mind it is such a cheap camera to buy. But when I first got the camera, I thought Intrepid had overlooked a few things. The first modification I did was to the lens board itself. The cutout for the lens board in my model was far too deep. I found when using my smaller lens, my 135, on a windy day, that the lens board itself would actually get pushed by the wind and would rattle around inside the camera, meaning that I would lose focus or the plane of focus would be shifted. To combat this though, I used some felt tape on the back of the lens board. Now the lens board fits much more snugly into the front standard. There is still a little bit of play because obviously you don't want it to be so tight that you could break something, but I find it much more stable now. The second modification that I had to make was involving the latch on the front. In the first couple of months of owning the camera, the screws that hold in the latch to hold the lens board kept unscrewing themselves and I lost them. I informed Intrepid of this and they sent me some replacement screws immediately. To secure the screws in place I used some Loctite and thankfully I haven't had a problem since. And the final modification that I made was inserting a Fresnel lens to the ground glass. I don't know all the facts on how a Fresnel lens works, but the basics are that it scatters light. And when you put that in front of the ground glass in a 4x5 camera, it makes the ground glass much clearer and much brighter and easier to see. I chose to do this one day when I was shooting in a forest. It was quite overcast and I was under a lot of trees. Even with the lens wide open, I was struggling to see my subject correctly. It's made such a big improvement to the camera itself. Since doing all the modifications and ironing out all the issues that I was initially having, I'm having a blast shooting large format. Would I recommend it to everyone? Probably not. I guess you could kind of say I'm more of a techie photographer than a portrait, landscape, whatever photographer. I just like going out and doing the process itself. I already owned a big scanner for scanning medium format. I already owned all the chemicals for developing E6, black and white C41, so I was covered on those bases. All I really had to buy was the film holder, the film, the camera and the lens. Everything else I had covered. Although the Intrepid is the cheapest way that I know of at least in getting into large format photography, it's still quite an expensive format to get into. Both lenses cost me together, I'd say roughly about £600. The camera itself costs $280. With that much money, you could buy yourself a decent TLR medium format 645. You could probably even buy an RB67 for that much money. Another thing that I really like about the camera that other people may not is the fact that it takes roughly 5 to 10 minutes just to take one photo. So the only people that I would really recommend this to are people that either are techie like me and just want to enjoy a different process. If you're doing portrait, studio, that sort of thing. Landscape photographers, fine art photographers, you'll love it. The amount of detail that you get from the negatives is so worth it, even if it does take, like I say, 5 to 10 minutes to take one photo. They're the sort of people that I think would really benefit from, say, an Intrepid system. Obviously, the lens does the image taking, the Intrepid is just the box itself. But the amount of, like I say, the amount of detail that you get from the camera is, ooh, spicy, lovely. If you enjoyed this video, let me know down below if there's anything else or any questions that you've got about it. I will be answering comments down there pretty much forever. I go back and I answer questions on previous videos from years and years back. I'm not sure how many videos I'm going to actually make on this channel this year because I've got some big plans, but if there is anything that you'd like to see, just let me know and I can see if I can do anything like that for you. Alrighty, see you next time.